viewers. Thank you so much.
Sure, thank you. I'm going to stand in the back because you really should be watching that and not me. I'll talk. So you just need to hear me. So I'm going to go and, Mark, I'll just say next slide. So, and then, so first of all, thank you very much for your support. It was you all provided money, you all provided things that we were able to take. There were 13 of us, and as you can see, we are outside the Jose Marti Airport in Havana, and these are the duffel bags. There were 13 of them that we filled to take, and it can be a long trip for 90 miles away. You know, you end up stopping, and there's no direct flight. There used to be for a few years. But then we left, and we got there at pretty decent time. So this is where we are. Next slide, please. Okay, so the way I arranged this is first we'll talk about the work. And you can see before and after. So we worked at the old folks' home, which is actually right across the street from the Bishop's Church, where we always worship, at least one Sunday while we are there. And this is an old folks' home, and I'll show you more, but I wanted you to see the entrance, and this is the before. You can see the little trellis or whatever it's called, and the chairs. The people who live there are all Methodist or related to Methodist. Some of them became Methodists after they got here, but their families are. And I don't know how common old folks' homes are in Cuba because there is no money for people to pay, unlike here. So this is completely dependent, I would say, on the American United Methodist Church. They have no money. What we take, what we donate, we means all of the United States, is how this home is run. Next slide, please. So this is one of the dining rooms in there. It says, Este es día del hizo el Señor, mi gozare y mi alegrare. Means this is the day the Lord has made, I'll be great. What is mi gozare? I would see with grateful and happy. And this is lady, you know, one of the people who lives there, she's, I think, cutting some vegetables. It's really pitch in. It's not like a typical senior citizen home in the United States. It's very much a home where everybody just lives together. Next slide, please. So I'm going to show you some before and after pictures. So this is the side. The street is on the left, and this is what it looked like before. And you can see we started scraping the first day we got there. We had to level the ground a little bit to get all the rocks and all so we could work on it. We did that, and then we scraped and we started painting it. And you always start painting and you hope you have enough paint, that you don't leave half the wall orange and half the wall green because you can't get supplies there. So luckily we had enough paint. Next slide, please. So this is the other side. As you can see, what happens is these are all concrete buildings. And so there's a lot of moisture because of the rain. And often we spend time fixing and patching and scraping before we can paint. And as you can see, this is so the front. You saw the front. This is the right hand on the looking towards the right of the wall. Next slide, please. So we have to build our scaffolding, and we started painting the side and the back of the wall. Luckily, we had quite a few tall people this time that really made it very easy for us to get a lot of work done. See the blue sky, it's beautiful. It was very nice. It rained, so it got cool and very clear. Next slide, please. So we had enough paint that we kept painting as long as we had paint. We painted the pillars, we painted the flower pots, we painted all those flower pots that are there, scraped them and painted them. Next slide, please. We painted inside, this is the men's room and the ladies' room. So as you can see, I was in there scraping before we started painting, and then we painted the bathrooms. Next slide, please. And we do whatever we can. We take all sorts of things, so we never know what we'll see. So we took, somebody donated a bunch of shower heads. I think somebody must have told us. So the shower heads didn't work. So we changed the shower heads, and you can see the bathroom when it's done. So this was a very interesting team. We had 4 engineers on our team. 3 of them worked for ExxonMobil and were retired, and one was an industrial. And so both ladies on the left were engineers. And they figured out how to, and sometimes you don't have parts that fit. But it was very nice having engineers because they were able to make the parts and with something and get them done. So those 2 ladies were, and the 2 guys I'll show you later. So you can see we did the shower heads, whatever needs to be done, we look around, ask them, do you want us to fix it? We always ask them. We are not the boss. That is when we start, we tell our folks, because Americans like to be in charge. They want to take over. And we tell them, you are not in charge. We tell the team every time. Cubans are in charge. This is because teams have gone, and despite the Cubans telling them you can't lay the cement this way, they've said, no, we know how to do it. They've done it, and we've followed them and redone the whole thing because it's sunk. It didn't stand. And so luckily our team leader is a Cuban who left Cuba when he was 14, 15, and he's the main person for all of the United States. And we have drilled into our folks, you are not in charge, they are. So we ask them whatever they want us to do, we do. Next slide. So that's Aldo. He's in charge of all of Volunteers in Mission going to Cuba, and you can see some of the nurses and other people who work there. So he was finishing the desk in the office. So like we said, if we find something to do, and we said, do you want us to fix it? So he was refinishing that. Next slide, please. So this is the back room. Look at the chairs and look at the windows. Those windows are the pre. We fixed the windows. They were broken. Some of them were broken. They're the ones that open up, with those levers. And so we fixed, some of them we had to rebuild, and then we scraped and painted them. And I spent a lot of time painting the chairs. So next slide, please. So these are the other 2 guys who were engineers, and they fixed all the windows, the broken ones. We happened to take a saw and other things. And so next slide, please. And after we fixed them, we scraped and painted the windows. Next slide, please. As you can see, we're painting them white, and luckily we found more white paint, so we were able to really do a double coat on the windows. So on these, so we painted the dining room tables and the chairs. And these are oil-based. We usually use gasoline, and I think I paint on my legs that'll never go away because it just stayed there, and I'll have orange paint for the rest of my life. It just is gasoline. So what you do is you scrape the tables, and then you wash them, you leave them out in the sun for 2 or 3 hours, then you come back and paint so we just painted the legs of these tables. Next slide, please. And then we painted all the chairs. And we painted like 10 chairs, and that pretty much took us 4 days. Because you wash them in the morning, you leave them and go back to lunch, and by that time they're nice and dry and scraped, and you come back and paint 2 chairs is all you can do in 3 or 4 hours. And then they have to dry for 2 or 3 hours, 2 or 3 days before people could sit on them. And this is the front. We brought them out in the front. Next slide, please. And they love helado, which is ice cream. So they kept telling us, you got to eat ice cream. So every afternoon they tried to give us ice cream. I think we finally agreed 2 days at this. So we took a break. So the lady at the end is Alba, and she's the coordinator. She speaks perfect English. She's a retired English teacher, and she's the coordinator who goes with every team who goes to Cuba and helps them out to translate and basically takes care of us to make sure we don't go astray. Next slide, please. Okay, I have a few personal like interaction slides. Uh, we had the pastor of Flores United Methodist Church go with us this time, Barbara Miner, who's on the right, and this lady Josefina is the lady sitting on the left is a resident, and she was reading the Bible. Barbara speaks no Spanish. Josefina speaks no English. So you can see it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that you don't speak the same language. You couldn't tell if I didn't tell you that. It looks like they're having a wonderful conversation. And so Barbara tried to read her the Bible in Spanish, and she could read very well, Josefina, but they were just sitting there talking. Um, and we do that. While we are there working, if somebody's sitting there, we'll just stop working and go sit with them and chat. The point is people to people. We do that with the old folks. We did that with the young folks where we go. It is not about the work. It is about the work, but it is not. The point is to make connection with other Christians in Cuba. Josephine told me that she was not brought up a Christian. She's still learning. Every time I talk to her, she says, I'm still learning. So next slide, please. So they have a lot of activities with the, it's not a very big home. They maybe have 20 people at the most, and some people just come for the day. And so Susanna has been the director ever since we've been going there. We visit this home every time we go, just for a visit. And so there they were having a prayer and Bible study. And they're all sitting there doing that. Next slide, please. And they also have exercises, like they throw the ball to each other, and when somebody gets the ball, they have to either sing a song or say a Bible verse if you catch the ball. So that's what they were doing, and it's very, very loving. It's they call each other mi amor, my love. They're just amazingly loving in this home. Next slide, please. Oh, this is very interesting. So their TV got stolen. They had a tiny little TV and their regular TV was stolen. They were watching this little black and white sitting on the and they're old. They barely could see it or hear it. So we had money, and we said, well, let's buy them TV. So we bought them this big TV. You can see, and Barbara is anointing the television. That's what she's doing. And there's Aldo, and you can see the hands, they're praying. So we kidded Barbara, what was the last time you anointed a television in America? So she got some olive oil, because that's the oil she had. And so that we stopped working, and we all got together to anoint the TV. And then we came back for lunch. It was already hung up on those, you can see a little bit of nails up there. Next slide, please. And this lady was a piece of work. She loved dancing and singing. She's one of the, and she was in there, I think, she probably got the ball and she was supposed to do something. So she was singing a hymn and dancing. Next slide, please. There's more. So this is part of that when she was dancing. Next slide, please. This was when we were done. This was our last day, and we all got together to thank them, and they thanked us for coming. We thanked them, and we were all standing. And this is Alba in the blue, translating for somebody. Next slide, please. And as I told you, watch the before and after. So you can see, if you remember the before, this is the after. You see we painted that and painted so it looks pretty good. And we are leaving and saying goodbye. And here's all of them. So there's Susana. The guy on the right was Mauricio. He spoke English pretty well. And he was in charge. He was the boss. And he told us what needed to be done. He's the deputy director of the thing, and you can see all the work. So I have some pictures of the residents that they're all different ages. There was one guy who was 88 and had lived there for 20 years. Um, Next slide, please. Uh, I remember some Sylvie in the middle loved to sing. So every time you walked, she couldn't see you well. So you had to literally walk up to her to say hello. And then she would just start singing. And it was hard to get away once she started singing. Next slide, please. And this lady has been there for a very long time. I remember when she could walk, and now we got back and she was in a wheelchair. She was tiny. Next slide, please. And there are some of the folks saying goodbye. Next slide. Here's Josefina. There's a phone, so you can use to make phone calls to your home. And it was out in the back. And I thought that was kind of cool, that an old-fashioned phone that they can call home or call whoever they want. Next slide, please. Okay, so while we are there, so the Cuban church, when you are like a church like Dulin, established church, you are required to have 2 mission churches. And before you can become a pastor, and this is for the 2 Daves sitting here, how lucky you are, you are supposed to start with a mission church out in the country. And if you're successful to getting so many members, then you may get ordained and become a real minister. So it's tough life for a Cuban pastor. And we always visit the mission churches. This used to be a mission church. A team went there like 6 years ago, and they painted. And this is San Antonio de los Baños. And Barbara preached. You can see Barbara on the right. And Alba was translating while she was preaching. And we always go at night. And it's a 2-hour service. And you worked all day. It's a 2-hour service. 1 hour for alabanza, which is praise music, and then maybe a 20-minute sermon, and then another 30 minutes of alabanza. So there's a lot of singing. And we take earplugs because they're very loud. So we put on earplugs. It's too loud for us. Next slide, please. And they always have dance in the service, interpretive dance. So here they are dancing during the service. And they had a TV you can see on the top for people in the back to be able to see. Next slide. Okay, so this was our second church. So you can see the difference. This is a true mission church. The Cuban government, you can see how rough it is. It's really not fixed. It's just a concrete place. There's nothing else. There's a cross on the wall. So the Cuban government won't allow you to build churches. You can't build a church from scratch. So what they do is they'll buy a house, or you can exchange a house actually with somebody, and then what you do is you add on a little bit to the house. First, you start the mission pastor goes there. They will start service in half of the house. So 2 or 3 and 10, 15, 20 people will meet in their living room, part of the house, and when they get too big, they'll put a little extension, which is temporary. And when they get a little bigger, if they get some money, they will cover it with the concrete. So this is where they are. It was literally a concrete room. And that's how they build churches. When they get established, they will start getting it more and more permanent. So this church is about 45 minutes. This was not a loud service. It was a really nice service. As you can see, these are some of the parishioners. Next slide, please. This is our breakfast. So I just wanted you to, I wish I'd taken a picture of the bedrooms also, I forgot. This is, they feed us very well. We take money and they're able to buy food on the black market. Otherwise, you can't get eggs, you can't get meat. You can get anything in the black market, just like any other country. People get eggs, 1 egg every 2 or 3 days, but we got eggs. This is the team. Next slide, please. So I used to get up early in the morning, and this is Julio, and I would go in the kitchen and try to help them. It's the way to get to know them, to ask them, who's your family and all that. So I managed in my little Spanish to be able to chit-chat with them. Next slide, please. I wanted to take some pictures, show you some pictures of Havana. As you can see, it's like a war zone. And there are too many holes and buildings falling apart. They have just no materials and paint falling. I mean, this is how it was 55, 60 years ago, and this is how it still is. some of the streets in Havana. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. So we went to Ernest Hemingway's home, and I thought maybe you would like to see that. He lived in Cuba for a long time, and this is it's just on the outskirts of Havana. And we try to go there pretty much every time. It's really a cool place to go. It has thousands of books, maybe 60, 70,000 books in there. Even in his bathroom, there's bookshelves. Next slide, please. I took a couple pictures. This is his office. As you can see, he was a big hunter. Next slide, please. I thought you'd enjoy some. I wasn't able. I forgot to take. Yeah, I go so much. I don't take too many pictures. These are the pictures of some of those cars that everybody talks about. Next slide, please. So this is the Methodist Center we stayed in, and the front is over in that side, and you come towards you is going in the back is where is the dining room and all. And we had a little bit of Wi-Fi. So you could see it would come from work, and if you stood by the window, you would get the Wi-Fi. So everybody would stand there. I thought it was a pretty cool picture, kind of funny. Everybody standing there trying to send some WhatsApp to their family back home. Next slide, please. This is the top 10 beaches in the world. It's called Varadero. This is last year's picture. This year it was very cloudy and rainy. So I wanted to show you a really nice picture of Varadero Beach. It's about 2 hours from Havana. Next slide, please. And I wanted to leave you with a beautiful Cuban sunset. So thank you very much for your support. It was a great trip, and appreciate your prayers and support.
Let's show our love to Sunita.